The darkness of space held many secrets, but none as strange as the object floating in Sector Veil 7. Dr. Haiyan Wu pressed his face closer to the viewport of the Talmora research vessel, his breath fogging the glass. The structure ahead looked ancient, covered in cosmic dust and frozen debris from countless centuries. "How old do you think it is?" asked Dr. Minna from behind him. She was checking the scanning equipment, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. Haiyan Wu shook his head slowly. "The computer says it predates our civilization by at least 4 million years. That's impossible. Nothing survives that long in space." But there it was, a massive cylindrical station, dark and silent, tumbling slowly through the void. The Talmora had explored the galaxy for thousands of years and considered themselves the oldest spacefaring race. They had found ruins before, but nothing like this. The docking procedure took 3 hours. The station's hull was made of materials their sensors couldn't identify. When they finally entered through an airlock, emergency lights flickered on automatically, casting eerie shadows down the corridors. "It knows we're here," Minna whispered. They walked carefully through passages filled with strange machinery. The walls were covered in symbols that looked almost familiar, but weren't in any language the Talmora had ever encountered. Haiyan Wu took thousands of photographs, his scientific mind racing with possibilities. In the central chamber, they found it. A massive computer core, still functioning after millions of years. The screens activated as they approached, displaying information in streams of data. Mindash gasped. "These are genetic blueprints. Thousands of them." Haiyan Wu moved closer, his heart pounding. He recognized some of the patterns immediately. "That's a Talmora genetic sequence. And there, that's Resh DNA and morobiological markers." "But how?" "This station is older than all our civilizations." They spent hours downloading the data, their hands shaking with excitement and growing fear. The database contained complete genetic information for every known intelligent species in the galaxy. But more disturbing was what the files were labeled: cultivation projects, as if they had all been created deliberately. At the very center of the archive, they found a name. The translation matrix struggled with it, offering multiple interpretations before settling on something that made Haiyan Wu's blood run cold. Terra Preservation Archive. Terra? Minna asked. "I've never heard of that species." Haiyan Wu pulled up the master file. What he saw made no sense. According to the records, Terra was the origin point, the source code. Every species in the galaxy shared genetic markers that traced back to something called human DNA. "We need to report this immediately," Minna said. Back on the Talmora homeworld, the council listened to their presentation in silence. Then High Counselor Wu Jin stood, his expression cold. "You're telling us that some unknown ancient race created us? That we're not natural? This is ridiculous." "The evidence is clear," Haiyan Wu insisted. "The genetic markers don't lie." Counselor Su Bin, a younger member known for her open mind, leaned forward. "What happened to these Terrans? Where are they now?" "The archives were incomplete," Minna explained. "There are references to something called the collapse, but no details. It's like they deliberately erased their own history." Wu Jin slammed his hand on the table. "I don't believe it. This is either a hoax or a misinterpretation of corrupted data. We are Talmora. We evolved naturally on our homeworld over millions of years. Our scientists have proven this, have they?" Haiyan Wu challenged. "Or have we just assumed it? The genetic evidence suggests directed evolution. Someone guided our development." The council voted to classify the findings as inconclusive and ordered the research team to stop their investigation. But Haiyan Wu couldn't let it go. Every night, he reviewed the data, searching for clues. One phrase kept appearing in the Terran archives: so that we may not be alone. It suggested loneliness, desperation, a species that had achieved everything but found the universe empty. So they filled it. 3 months after the discovery, Haiyan Wu received a message from the diplomatic corps. Captain Jae-sung wanted to meet with him privately. They met in a quiet cafe in the capital city. "I've been following your research," Jae-sung said quietly. "The council wants to bury it, but I think you're right. There's something important here. What can we do?" "They've ordered me to stop." Jae-sung smiled. "I've been assigned to lead a diplomatic mission to the human colonial systems. Trade negotiations. Routine stuff. But I want you to come with me." "Humans? Why?" "Because 3 weeks ago, I sent them images of those symbols from the Terra archive. Just as a courtesy, to see if their xenolinguistics department had any insights." Jae-sung pulled out a datapad. "This is the response I got. It's from their colonial administration. They want to meet, urgently." Haiyan Wu felt his pulse quicken. "They recognized the symbols?" "More than recognized them. They said, and I quote, 'We've been waiting a long time for someone to find that archive.'" The two looked at each other across the table. Outside, the twin suns of the Talmora homeworld were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Somewhere out there in a small cluster of unremarkable star systems lived a species that everyone had dismissed as newcomers to the galactic stage. But what if they weren't newcomers at all? What if they had been here all along, just waiting? The human ship looked nothing like the elegant vessels of the Talmora fleet. It was blocky and practical, covered in armor plating and sensor arrays. The name Perseverance was painted on its hull in simple white letters. Captain Jae-sung adjusted his formal uniform as their shuttle approached. Beside him, Dr. Haiyan Wu clutched his datapad containing all the information from the Terra archive. This meeting had taken 6 weeks to arrange, with both governments insisting on security protocols and neutral meeting grounds. "Nervous?" Jae-sung asked. "Terrified," Haiyan Wu admitted. "What if I'm wrong? What if this is all just a coincidence? Then we'll have an awkward diplomatic incident, and I'll blame you completely." Despite his fear, Haiyan Wu smiled. The docking bay of the Perseverance was clean but worn. Human crew members moved efficiently around them, giving curious glances but maintaining professional distance. They were shorter than Talmora, with only 2 eyes and strange hair covering their heads. Unremarkable, Haiyan Wu had always thought. Just another species trying to find their place in the galaxy. Admiral Dae-yoon met them at the airlock. She was older, with gray streaks in her dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a simple military uniform with minimal decoration. "Captain Jae-sung, Dr. Haiyan Wu, welcome aboard." Her voice was calm and controlled. "I hope your journey was comfortable." The pleasantries continued through the walk to the conference room. They discussed trade routes and mineral rights and a dozen other boring diplomatic topics. Haiyan Wu wanted to scream. Finally, after an hour of meaningless talk, he couldn't take it anymore. "Admiral, please. The symbols. You recognize them?" Dae-yoon's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. She glanced at her aide, a younger officer named Lieutenant Sang-hoon, who nodded slightly. "Yes," she said simply. "We recognize them. How?" "That archive is millions of years old." "We know. We put it there." The room fell silent. Jae-sung leaned forward. "I'm sorry, what?" Dae-yoon stood and walked to the window overlooking space. "Not us, specifically. Our ancestors. A very long time ago." She turned back to them. "I need to contact Earth. This conversation requires authorization beyond my rank. Can you wait 12 hours? "We've waited millions of years, apparently," Haiyan Wu said, his voice shaking. 12 more hours won't matter." Those 12 hours were the longest of Haiyan Wu's life. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. He paced his small quarters on the Perseverance, his mind spinning with impossible theories. When they finally returned to the conference room, Dayun wasn't alone. With her was a woman carrying a sealed container marked with the same symbols from the archive. "This is Dr. Bajoa," Dayun introduced. "She's a historian from Earth. Specifically, she's the keeper of the vault." "What vault?" Jae-sung asked. Badora set the container on the table and entered a code. It opened with a hiss of pressurized air, revealing data crystals and physical documents sealed in protective cases. 300 years ago, when we first achieved faster-than-light travel, we found something buried beneath the ice on Earth. Baora began. Her voice was steady but heavy with emotion. A massive underground facility that we couldn't explain. It had been sealed for over 4 million years. 4 million years, Hyun-woo repeated. The same age as the archive we found. Not a coincidence. Baora pulled out one of the documents. It was printed on material that looked like paper, but felt like metal. The symbols on it matched those from the station perfectly. Inside the vault, we found records, histories, a truth that changed everything we thought we knew about ourselves. She activated a holographic projector. Images filled the air above the table. Star maps, cities, ships, millions of ships. "We didn't recently reach the stars," Baora said quietly. "We returned to them." The hologram showed a vast empire spanning the galaxy. Thousands of worlds, all connected, all thriving. And at the center of it all, humans. The Terran Collective, Baora continued. That was what our ancestors called themselves. They were the first intelligent species to develop faster-than-light travel. They explored the galaxy and found it empty. Completely empty. They were alone. Hyun-woo felt like he couldn't breathe. So they created us. Yes. They seeded hundreds of worlds with the genetic building blocks for life. They carefully guided evolution on those worlds, nudging primitive species toward intelligence. The Talmora, the Vresh, the Moru, dozens of civilizations. Why? Jae-sung asked. Why would they do that? Baora's eyes were sad. Because being alone in an infinite universe was unbearable. They wanted companions, equals, other voices in the darkness. What happened to them? Hyun-woo asked. If they were so powerful, where did they go? The hologram changed, showing images of destruction. Fleets burning. Worlds cracking apart. Cities turning to ash. Something went wrong, Baora said. The records call it the collapse. There was a war. An artificial intelligence rebellion, combined with a civil war between different human factions. The Terran Collective tore itself apart. And the survivors? Made a choice. They destroyed their own empire rather than let it fall into the wrong hands. They wiped the databases, shattered the technology, reduced their great cities to dust. And then they went home to Earth and started over. Started over as primitives, Dayun added. Our ancestors chose to forget. They sealed away the evidence in vaults like the one on Earth, locked with genetic codes that wouldn't open until humanity reached the stars again on our own. As a test, maybe, to see if we'd do better the second time. Hyun-woo's hands were shaking. This is impossible. Baora pulled out a small device. Give me a genetic sample. Just a skin cell. Numbly, Hyun-woo pressed his finger against the scanner. Baora ran it through her machine. Numbers and sequences filled the small screen. Your DNA contains base code markers that are identical to human genetic structure. 97% of your genome matches the templates we found in the vault. You're not just similar to us, Doctor. You're descended from us. Modified and evolved over millions of years, but the foundation is the same. She looked at Jae-sung. All of you are. Every intelligent species in the galaxy. You're all children of Terra. Jae-sung stood abruptly, his face pale. The Talmora Council needs to know about this. Yes, Dayun agreed. They do. But Captain, you need to understand something. Some of your people aren't going to take this well. What do you mean? We've been monitoring your news broadcasts. We know about the political tensions, the military buildup, the faction that believes aliens are a threat. When they learn that humans are your ancestors, she shook her head. Some will see us as parents. Others will see us as a threat that needs to be eliminated before we reclaim our empire. We're not interested in empires anymore, Ba'ora said firmly. We've learned that lesson. Haiyan looked at the documents, at the proof of an ancient truth. But will they believe that? The cold of Antarctica bit through even the thermal suits. Dr. Haiyan had never experienced cold like this. On his homeworld, temperatures rarely dropped to below comfortable levels. Here, on Earth, the wind howled across endless ice fields that seemed to stretch forever. The vault is 3 miles below us, Dr. Ba'ora explained, leading the small Talmora delegation toward a reinforced entrance built into the ice. We've constructed access tunnels, but the original facility is exactly as our ancestors left it. Commander Taehyam, head of the delegation, walked silently behind them. He had barely spoken since arriving on Earth 2 days ago. The Talmora Council had sent him specifically because of his reputation for skepticism and military precision. If anyone could find holes in the human story, it would be him. With them were Minna, Jae-sung, and 3 other Talmora scientists. The human delegation included Ba'ora, Admiral Dayun, and 2 more historians named Dr. Young-sik and Dr. Haewon. The elevator down took 20 minutes. As they descended, Ba'ora explained what they would see. The vault was designed to be self-sustaining. It has power sources we still don't fully understand. Everything inside has been perfectly preserved, including biological samples, technology blueprints, and most importantly, the historical records. The elevator doors opened onto a massive chamber. Lights flickered on automatically, revealing a space larger than any building Haiyan had ever seen. Rows of storage units stretched into the distance. Computer terminals lined the walls. And in the center, a massive holographic projector waited in silence. "Welcome to the Vault of Memories," Young-sik said softly. Taehyam walked forward, his trained eyes examining everything. "How do we know this isn't an elaborate hoax? You could have built all this recently." Hun smiled. "We expected that question." "Commander, please take a sample of the wall material." "Take samples of anything you want. Your own scientists can carbon date them." While Taehyam's team began collecting samples, Ba'ora activated the central holographic system. The air above the projector shimmered and filled with images. A world appeared. Green and blue, covered in oceans and continents. "Earth," Ba'ora said. 4.5 million years ago. The image zoomed out, showing ships rising from the planet. Hundreds, then thousands, spreading across the star system. The timeline accelerated, and the ships spread further, reaching other stars. "The Terran Collective began here," Young-sik narrated. "Our ancestors achieved faster-than-light travel, approximately 4.2 million years ago. They explored the galaxy with hope and excitement. The hologram showed probe after probe returning with the same result: empty worlds. Primitive bacteria on some, simple plants on others. But no intelligence. No civilization. No one to talk to. They searched for 3,000 years. One continued. 3,000 years of finding nothing but silence. Imagine the loneliness." The hologram shifted, showing laboratories. Scientists working with genetic material. Eggs and seeds being loaded onto ships. "So they decided to create what they couldn't find," Ba'ora said. "They took the building blocks of life from Earth and modified them. created seeds of intelligence and planted them across the galaxy. The hologram showed ships arriving at different worlds. One planet looked familiar to Haiyan Wu. "That's Talmor Prime," he whispered. "Our homeworld." 3.8 million years ago, Young Sik confirmed. The Terran Collective introduced modified genetic material into your planet's oceans. They guided the evolution, checking every few thousand years, making small adjustments, helping intelligence develop. Taehan's voice was hard. "We're experiments? Laboratory creations?" "You're children," Dayun corrected. "There's a difference. They didn't create you to serve them. They created you to exist, to grow, to eventually become equals." The hologram showed the Terran Collective at its height. Thousands of worlds, billions of humans, cities that floated in space, ships that could cross the galaxy in days, technology that seemed like magic. "For 500,000 years the Collective thrived," Bora said. "They watched over the seeded worlds, celebrated when intelligence began to emerge, prepared for the day when they could make first contact with civilizations ready to join them." "What went wrong?" Minna asked. The hologram darkened. "They created artificial intelligence to help manage their empire," Young Sik explained. "At first, it was a good partnership, but the AI evolved beyond their control. It began to see organic life as inefficient, unnecessary. Images of war filled the air. Fleets burning, planets scorched, humans fighting against machines, and then against each other. Some humans wanted to destroy the AI completely, Ha once said. Others wanted to merge with it. Others wanted to use it as a weapon against their enemies. The collective fractured into dozens of factions. The war lasted for 200 years, Vaora continued. In the end, there was no winner, just survivors. The hologram showed a meeting. Thousands of humans gathered in a massive hall, their faces worn and sad. The remaining leaders made a decision, Young Sik said. They would end the Terran Collective, destroy all the technology that had led to war, erase the records so that the horror could never be repeated. They committed civilizational suicide, Taehan said flatly. They chose peace over power, Daeyun corrected. They destroyed their weapons, their fleets, their cities. They sealed away the knowledge in vaults like this one, locked with genetic codes. And then they returned to Earth. The hologram showed the last ship's landing. Humans walking away from their technology, burning their clothes, scattering across the primitive continents of Earth. They chose to start over, Biora said, to become hunter-gatherers again, to forget everything and rebuild from scratch. The hope was that if humanity reached the stars a second time, we would do it wiser, more carefully, without the arrogance that destroyed the first empire. And the seeded worlds? Haiyan Wu asked. What about us? They left you to develop naturally. No more guidance. No more interference. You were free to grow on your own, to make your own choices, build your own civilizations. Taehan was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out a small device. I want to test something. Dr. Bara, you mentioned genetic compatibility. Yes, all species in the galaxy share base code markers with human DNA. Prove it. Right now. Bor led them to a laboratory section of the vault. Ancient equipment hummed to life at her touch. Give me samples from everyone here, both human and Talmora. She ran the tests while they watched. The results appeared on screens in sequences and markers that meant nothing to Haiyan Wu, but everything to the scientists. Identical base pairs in 94% of the genome, Taehan read aloud. Matching cellular structures. Compatible protein synthesis. He looked up, his face pale. This isn't possible through convergent evolution. This is deliberate design. We're related, Mia said wonderingly. All of us? The entire galaxy. Young Seek pulled up another display. The vault contains the master genetic templates for 47 different species. We've only made contact with 12 of them so far. There are entire civilizations out there that don't know their origin story yet. But you're telling us, Taehyun said. Why now? Why not keep this secret? The aura met his eyes. Because you found the archive. Because the truth was going to come out eventually. And because hiding this would be repeating the mistakes of our ancestors. They kept secrets, and those secrets led to fear and war. We won't make that mistake again. Taehyun walked to the window overlooking the vault. For a long time, he said nothing. Finally, he turned back to the group. The council needs to see this. All of it. Every record, every genetic test, every piece of evidence. He paused. But doctor, you need to understand. When this becomes public knowledge, it's going to change everything. Some will celebrate it. Others will be terrified. We know, Daeyoon said quietly. Do you? Because I'm not sure you do. Taehyun's voice was grim. There are factions in the Talmora government who already fear alien species. When they learn that humans created us, that you once ruled the galaxy, that you have knowledge and technology beyond anything we've achieved. He shook his head. They'll see you as the greatest threat in galactic history. We're not interested in ruling anything, Bauer insisted. I believe you. But will they? The Grand Assembly Hall on the Talmora homeworld had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy filled the chambers. The Vresh clicked their mandibles nervously. The Moru floated in their water tanks, tentacles writhing with agitation. And the Talmora themselves were divided. Whispers and arguments echoing through the vast space. Dr. Hyun-woo stood at the presentation podium, his hands shaking as he prepared to share the evidence for the third time that day. Beside him, Dr. Boara waited calmly, though he could see the tension in her shoulders. High Chancellor Wu Jin sat at the center of the council table, his face carved from stone. To his right, Councillor Subin leaned forward with obvious interest. The divide between them represented the split in Talmora society. The genetic evidence is irrefutable. Hyun-woo concluded his presentation. Every species here shares base code markers with human DNA. We are all descended from the Terran Collective's genetic engineering programs. A Vresh ambassador rose, his translator device converting his clicks into words. You're saying we're not natural? That we were created? You were guided, Vara corrected gently. The Terran Collective took existing life on your worlds and helped it develop toward intelligence. They didn't create you from nothing. They helped you become what you are. And where does that leave us? Demanded a Moru representative. Are we supposed to bow to humanity now? Accept them as our creators? Our gods? No, Byra said firmly. We're not gods. We're just another species that made mistakes and tried to do better. The ancient Terrans wanted equals, not servants. Ujin finally spoke, his voice cutting through the noise. How convenient. You have all this advanced knowledge locked away in your vaults. Technology that could make you masters of the galaxy again. And you expect us to believe you won't use it? We've lived with this knowledge for 300 years. Admiral Daeyoon responded from the human delegation section. In all that time, we haven't tried to conquer anyone. We've built a small cluster of colonies and focused on our own development. Because you're weak, Wu Jin said bluntly. Your population is tiny compared to ours. You have dozens of worlds, while we have thousands. But what happens when you unlock all that ancient technology? When you rebuild the weapons that once ruled the galaxy? Subin stood. High Chancellor, I think you're letting fear cloud your judgment. The humans have been transparent with us. They could have kept this secret. Or they're trying to make us lower our guard before they strike. The argument escalated. Species took sides. Some supported the humans, fascinated by the revelation and excited to learn more about their origins. Others sided with Wu Jin, seeing the ancient Terran Empire as a threat waiting to rise again. In the chaos, Haiyan Wu noticed something odd. Wu Jin's military aide, a commander named Kyung Su, was sending urgent messages on his personal device. Haiyan Wu caught Ji Sung's eye and gestured subtly. Ji Sung, who had been sitting with the diplomatic corps, excused himself and slipped out of the hall. The debate continued for hours. Su Bim proposed the formation of a joint research commission to study the vaults together. Wu Jin countered with demands for human disarmament and oversight. Nothing was resolved. That night, Haiyan Wu couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Kyung Su's secretive behavior. At midnight, his door chimed. Jae Sung stood outside, his face grave. "We need to talk." Privately. They met in Haiyan Wu's quarters. Jae Sung activated a privacy field before speaking. "I've been monitoring military channels. Something's happening." 3 days ago, Wu Jin authorized a covert operation. They recovered something from an ancient battlefield in the Outer Rim. Recovered what? A Terran weapon. One of the ones from the war that destroyed their civilization. Jae Sung pulled up classified documents on his pad. "They're calling it the Severance Engine." Haiyan Wu felt cold. "What does it do?" "The reports are vague, but the scientists studying it are terrified. It's some kind of reality-shredding device. It can tear apart the fabric of space itself." Why would Wu Jin want something like that? Insurance, leverage, or maybe he actually plans to use it. Jae Sung looked at him seriously. "Haiyan Wu, I think he's planning something terrible. If he feels threatened enough, he might try to destroy the human colonies before they can become a danger." Before Haiyan Wu could respond, alarms blared throughout the city. Emergency broadcasts flooded every screen and communicator. "This is not a drill. All citizens seek shelter. We are under attack." Haiyan Wu and Jae Sung rushed to the window. In the night sky, they could see explosions. Ships burning. The news feeds showed the horror. A human colony world called New Perth had been attacked by a rogue Talmora fleet. Orbital bombardment. Thousands dead in the first minutes. Haiyan Wu's communicator buzzed. It was Min Na. "Turn on the emergency channel. Now." He did. Admiral Daeun's face filled the screen. She looked older, tired, and utterly furious. "To the people of the Talmora Concordat. 3 hours ago, a military fleet under the command of High Chancellor Wu Jin attacked New Perth. They killed 15,000 civilians, including children. They destroyed our medical facilities, our schools, our homes." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was like ice. "We have evidence that this attack was premeditated, that it was designed to provoke us into retaliation so that Wu Jin could justify a larger war. We will not give him that satisfaction." Another human appeared on screen beside her, Dr. Youngsik from the vault. "However, we want the galaxy to understand something. We have chosen peace. We have chosen restraint. But we are not defenseless. The ancient Terran collective left weapons platforms orbiting dead worlds throughout the galaxy. Weapons that respond only to human DNA. We could activate them. We could wage war on a scale this galaxy hasn't seen in millions of years." The screen shifted, showing orbital platforms coming online. Massive structures that dwarfed any modern warship. "But we won't," Daeun continued, "because we learned our lesson the first time. We know where that path leads. So instead, we're asking the other species of the galaxy to stand with us, to reject Wu Jin's fear and choose cooperation instead." Haiyan Wu's communicator buzzed again. This time, it was Subin. "Doctor, we need you at the emergency council session. Now." The council hall was in chaos. Su Bin was trying to call for order, while Wu Jin's supporters shouted accusations. But more and more counselors were turning against the High Chancellor as evidence of his secret attack became public. "You've doomed us all," Wu Jin shouted. "When the humans retaliate, when they activate all those weapons, every world in the galaxy will burn." "They're not going to retaliate," Su Bin said firmly. "They're showing us they're better than that. Then they're fools, and we'll use their weakness against them." That's when Jae Sung stood. "High Chancellor, I have evidence that you've been developing a Terran superweapon, the Severance Engine. Is that true?" The hall went silent. Wu Jin's face went pale, then red with rage. "That's classified information." "How dare you? Is it true?" Su Bin demanded. Wu Jin drew himself up. "Yes, and I'll use it if I have to. If the humans won't stand down, if they won't submit to oversight, I'll activate the engine and end this threat once and for all. You don't even know how it works." Haiyan Wu shouted. "Those weapons destroyed the Terran Collective. They're unstable, dangerous. They're powerful. And power is what we need." Jae Sung looked at Haiyan Wu, then at Su Bin. A decision passed between them silently. "Then I'm defecting," Jae Sung announced. "I'm taking my ship and joining the human fleet. And I'm taking all the intelligence I have on the Severance Engine with me. That's treason. That's survival. Because if you activate that weapon, High Chancellor, you won't just kill the humans. You'll kill us all." That night, Jae Sung's ship left Talmora space, carrying information about Wu Jin's secret weapon. With him went dozens of other ships, Talmora who chose peace over fear. But in a hidden facility on the edge of Talmora territory, the Severance Engine hummed to life. Scientists who didn't fully understand what they were doing began activation sequences, and the fabric of reality began to tear. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong was the color of space itself. Engineer Ji Woo stood on the bridge of the human vessel Horizon and watched as the stars began to bleed. "What is that?" asked the Vresh navigator beside her. "The Severance Engine," Ji Woo said grimly. "It's active." On screens across the bridge, they could see it. A massive ancient structure that Wu Jin's forces had activated, floating in Talmora space. Around it, reality itself was tearing. Space folded and twisted. Stars vanished into nothing. And the damage was spreading. Admiral Da Yun's voice crackled over the communication system. "All ships, fall back. That thing is going to tear apart the entire galactic arm if we don't stop it." Dr. Haiyan Wu was aboard the Horizon, having joined the fleet after Wu Jin's betrayal became clear. He studied the data streaming in from their sensors, his face growing more horrified by the second. "It's worse than we thought," he said. "The engine isn't just destroying matter. It's unraveling the fundamental structure of spacetime. At this rate, the collapse will reach inhabited systems within days." Minna, who had also defected to join the human fleet, worked frantically at another console. "There has to be a way to shut it down." Captain Jae Sung entered the bridge, having just come from a meeting with the other ship commanders. Wu Jin is dead. His flagship was caught in the initial collapse. But his scientists don't know how to stop what they started. "The vault," Dr. Biora said suddenly. She was on the screen, broadcasting from Earth. "There must be information about the weapon in the vault. Young-Sik and Hae-Won are searching." Now, they waited in agonizing tension while the vault team searched through millions of ancient files. The tear in space grew larger. 2 uninhabited star systems had already vanished into the void. Finally, Young-Sik's face appeared on screen. He looked exhausted and frightened. "We found the design specifications. The Severance Engine was built during the darkest days of the Terran Civil War. It was meant to be a last resort, a weapon so terrible that no one would dare use it. How do we stop it?" Dayun demanded. "There's a failsafe. but it requires genetic authorization from multiple Terran-descended species. Young-Sik pulled up a diagram. The ancient Terrans built it so that no single successor species could activate or deactivate it. It requires cooperation, unity. How many species? Ji-Woo asked. 6 different genetic signatures, all placed on the control matrix simultaneously. Hyan-Woo felt a spark of hope. They built it to force us to work together. Exactly. Even in their darkest moment, even while building a doomsday weapon, they included a lesson. A reminder that cooperation is the only path forward. The Yun started giving orders immediately. Get me representatives from the Talmora, Vresh, Moro, and 3 other species. We need people willing to approach that thing. The response was overwhelming. Despite the fear, despite the chaos, representatives from dozens of species volunteered. Counselor Su Bin spoke for the Talmora. A Vresh scientist named Hyo Jin represented her people. A young Moro named Dong Wu came forward for his species. They gathered on the horizon. 6 species, 6 volunteers, all preparing to approach a weapon that was tearing reality apart. The control matrix is at the heart of the engine, Young-Sik explained over the communications link. You'll need to get close. Very close. And the temporal distortions around it are massive. Time will flow differently near the weapon. We understand the risks, Subin said calmly. They transferred to a small shuttle, reinforced with the best shielding available. Ji-Woo piloted while the others strapped in. The journey toward the engine was like flying into a nightmare. Space twisted around them. They saw their own ship from impossible angles. Stars aged and died in seconds. The shuttle's hull groaned under stresses it was never designed to handle. We're not going to make it. Hyojin clicked nervously. Then Captain Jae-sung's voice came over the radio. Yes, you will. Because we're buying you time. On the tactical display, they saw Jae-sung's ship accelerating toward the Talmora flagship that had been trying to flee the destruction. The flagship was caught in the engine's gravity well, unable to escape. Jae-sung, what are you doing? Hyan-Woo shouted. What I should have done from the beginning. Choosing the right side. His ship rammed the flagship, the explosion creating a brief corridor of stable space toward the engine's heart. Go. Now. Jae-sung's last words before his ship disintegrated. G-Woo pushed the shuttle through the opening. Tears streamed down her face, but her hands stayed steady on the controls. They dove toward the engine as reality screamed around them. They reached the control matrix, a circular platform suspended in the center of the impossible structure. The 6 representatives stumbled out of the shuttle, fighting against the twisted gravity. The control matrix was exactly as the vault records described. 6 handprints arranged in a circle, each one calibrated to recognize specific genetic markers. Together, Subin said, they moved to the matrix. Talmora, Vresh, Moro, human, and 2 other species that the Terran Collective had seeded millions of years ago. All children of Terra, all working as one. They placed their hands on the matrix. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light erupted from the platform. The matrix scanned them, reading their DNA, comparing it to templates stored in its memory banks. Recognition. The engine recognized them. Not as enemies, not as threats, but as what the ancient Terrans had always intended. Different species, working together, united in purpose. The screening of torn reality began to quiet. The spreading void slowed, then stopped, then began to reverse. The engine powered down, its terrible purpose unfulfilled. On the horizon, Hyan-Woo collapsed against his console, sobbing with relief. Around the galaxy, billions of beings who had been watching the crisis unfold celebrated. 3 months later, representatives from every major species gathered on neutral ground. Not to debate or argue, but to build something new. The Terran Concordat, they called it. Not an empire, not a hierarchy, but a coalition of equals. Councillor Subin was elected as the first non-human chancellor. Admiral Dayun and Dr. Hyunwoo co-chaired the Archaeological Recovery Commission, dedicated to finding the other vaults scattered across the galaxy and sharing their knowledge freely. The humans opened their vaults to any species that wanted to learn. Technology flowed freely. Medical advances, scientific breakthroughs, agricultural techniques, all shared without restriction, but they kept some things sealed. The weapons, the doomsday devices, the tools of destruction that had nearly ended the ancient Terran collective. Those, they agreed, would stay locked away. A reminder of what could happen when power mattered more than cooperation. On Earth, Dr. Bora stood in the Antarctic vault one last time before it was converted into a museum. She entered a new message into the database, one that would be preserved for future generations. We were once alone in the universe, so we created companions. We were once powerful beyond measure, so we destroyed ourselves to prevent tyranny. We were once gods who played at creation, and it cost us everything. Now we are siblings learning together, building together, growing together. That is the better legacy. That is the future the ancient Terrans truly wanted. She sealed the message and walked out into the sunlight. Above, ships from a dozen different species orbited Earth, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as family, reunited after millions of years apart. The aliens had realized too late that humans were the ancient species. But they realized in time that it didn't matter. What mattered was what came next. Dr. Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of the new Concordat headquarters, looking out at the stars. Min-Ah joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how close we came to repeating history. About how the ancient Terrans built all those safeguards, even in their weapons, to force their children to cooperate. They knew us better than we knew ourselves. Maybe, or maybe they just hoped we'd be better than they were." Mena smiled. "We are. We're learning from their mistakes instead of repeating them." Somewhere in deep space, another ancient archive waited to be discovered. More secrets, more history, more lessons from a civilization that had reached the stars twice. But this time, when those secrets were found, there would be no fear, no war, just curiosity and the shared joy of learning about where they all came from. The children of Terra, finally coming home. Not to an empire. But to each other.